Hey there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm sharing my July reading wrap-up as well as some favorite things that I enjoyed during the month of July. Now I started this in June where I was sharing weekly updates, and then at the end of June I shared sort of my favorite things and favorite reads. And so I'm going to try that again this month, and I want to continue this pattern hopefully because I'm trying to get adjusted to the best way to share things. I've noticed that throughout the day, now that we have this community, I'm thinking of things I want to share with you. And so I'm keeping a little notebook. I have this little notebook that I'm just jotting things down in as I go so that I remember to talk about them. So I'm going to try to keep doing that. And if you have any suggestions of better ways to keep up with things, let me know in the comments because, you know, we get busy and we forget. For the month of July, I had a sort of a vacation. It was road trip slash vacation. I don't know really what to call it because I guess it really wasn't a vacation, but my husband and I made it one. My son, my youngest son, is a musician. I think I've told you that on the channel before. And for his graduation, he graduated from high school. He wanted a custom built Fender guitar, which of course every electric guitarist wants a Fender. And then he wanted a trip to this camp. They have this camp in Nashville, Tennessee that's a week long, and it's for young musicians. So we gave him that for his graduation. So we went on this trip to Nashville, Tennessee, and a friend that it happens to be a drummer went with him, and they both went to this camp. Well, Nashville is several hours away, and so I told my husband, I said, we'll just make it a road trip. We'll drop them off at the camp, and then we'll just spend the weekend in Nashville, Tennessee, and just hang out. Well, I'm not a city person. You know, Nashville's a pretty busy place, and I try to avoid cities, to tell you the truth. But, you know, I haven't been to Nashville in years. I've only been to Nashville one other time. And so I thought, well, this will be a fun way for my husband and I to kind of take a little vacation by ourselves. And, you know, my son can go to this camp. So we were there for 7 days. We dropped my son and his friend off at the camp. And then the rest of the week, we just kind of chilled out and enjoyed ourselves. We didn't do much of the city life because I guess I'm just too old for city life. By the time the city awakens, I'm going to sleep. But we did find a few things that we enjoyed in Nashville. And we took my son, once we picked them up on Thursdays, and we stayed till Saturday so that they could do a few things too, because there are a lot of guitar stores and drum stores there in the area. So I had jotted some down that a friend had told me about. So I took the boys to those stores so that they could enjoy, you know, checking out some equipment and all that stuff that musicians enjoy doing. I mean, it's Nashville, Tennessee. Of course, they wanted to tour. So we did do a little bit of that with them. But the rest of the time, my husband and I just kind of stayed on the outskirts of the city and went to some used bookstores and some little free libraries and tried out all the desserts in the area pretty much. So we had a great time. It was fun to get away. We stayed in a little suburban area right outside of Nashville, and it was right at the Greenway. So it was just a beautiful location. It was a quiet neighborhood. In the mornings, there were deer in my backyard and little bunnies hopping around, which surprised me because, you know, I'm from the country. And so seeing these things right outside a big city, I was surprised at. But like I said, they have a greenway there, so there's a lot of wildlife in the area. So that made me feel more at home, and we enjoyed the greenway. There's a nice park and pond and things there. And then, like I said, we went to a lot of used bookstores and things like that. So that was a favorite thing, to spend some time away in Nashville and to try out some new bookstores. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those bookstores in another video because I did get several books, so I'm going to do a Nashville book haul for that. So I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But we found the best dessert shop. It was called Five Daughters Bakery, and it is ran by, I think it's a husband and wife who have 5 daughters, and I think they're from Franklin, Tennessee, because I checked out their website. So we just happened upon this dessert shop, and in the afternoons I always like to drink my coffee and eat a dessert. My son my son and I have this tradition where we sit down in the afternoons and he drinks tea and I drink coffee and we have a dessert and watch an old TV show, some kind of old TV show. And so that's always our tradition. Well, since my son was at camp and we were there, my husband joined in my tradition. And so in the afternoons, we would stop and find us a local cafe or dessert shop. This is how boring I am. I mean, we wouldn't even stay at the shop. I would take the the dessert back to the house where we were staying, make a cup of coffee, and then would watch some movie or something on TV. Yes, I'm boring, I know, but that's what I enjoy doing. So we went to this shop called the Five Daughters Desserts, the Five Daughters Bakery, that's what it's called. And I think they're out of Franklin, Tennessee, but they had, I know of 2 locations in Nashville. Oh my goodness, this was the best donut. I was raised on Krispy Kreme donuts. So from the time I can remember, we would cross the border into Augusta because that was the only shop we had in Augusta, Georgia, right across the river, because I'm just a few minutes away. I'm on the Georgia line. I'm in South Carolina, but I'm on the Georgia line. We would go into Augusta, Georgia, and Mama would stop at this Krispy Kreme shop that was right there, and we would get a dozen donuts and take them home, you know. So that was my donuts. That was the only donuts I ever knew. So when Dunkin' Donuts came around when I was an adult, I mean, I did not have a Dunkin' Donut until I was an adult. I thought, this is not a donut. This is a cake with a hole in it. It did not taste like a donut to me because I was raised on Krispy Kreme donuts. And if you've had a Krispy Kreme, you know, they are fried donuts. And they have this heavenly glaze on top. I mean, purely from heaven. They are delicious. And they melt in your mouth. I mean, as soon as you put them in your mouth, they're gone. But those 5 seconds are just wonderful. So for me, that is a donut. Now, I do enjoy Dunkin' Donuts. I like them, but that is more of a cake donut. Now they have, you know, they've branched out a little bit and they have other kinds of donuts besides those cake ones. And they have something similar to a Krispy Kreme, but it's not a Krispy Kreme. Anyway, at Five Daughters, they know what they're doing. They have this donut that's called the 100-layer donut, and it's fried, I think, because it tasted a lot like a Krispy Kreme, but it was delicious. And they had one, I don't know if this was a limited thing that they were doing for the summer, but the one that I chose was called a churro crunch. So it had that churro cinnamon sugary thing on top, and then that pillowy donut. It was delicious. And so I think we went back 3 times. I was like, okay, forget the rest of the desserts in Nashville. I don't care. We're going back there. I ended up getting a maple glazed one time and then the churro crunch again. And the churro crunch was just heavenly. That was one of the best desserts ever. So if you were ever in Tennessee near a Five Daughters bakery, I highly recommend trying the 100-layer donut because it is a beautiful dessert. So that was a favorite for me. And then, like I said earlier, my son and I watch classic TV in the afternoons. We just watch one episode. Right now we're watching the Dick Van Dyke Show, and I think we're on season 4 and we're making our way through. I think there's about 5 seasons, so we don't have too much more of that, and we are laughing our way through it. If you've never watched the Dick Van Dyke Show, it is one of the funniest shows you will ever see. And now it is from its time. She is, of course, a stay-at-home housewife, and he goes to work as a comedy writer for a television show, and it's just funny. Mary Tyler Moore and Dick Van Dyke are wonderful, and so are the neighbors. There's a neighbor named Millie. She makes a show for me. And then there is Sally and Buddy in The Office, and they are hilarious as well. So if you've never watched Dick Van Dyke, check it out because it's funny. But we're on, I think, season 4, and we're continuing through that. So that was a favorite thing. I just love that we do that every afternoon. My son drinks his hot tea, and I have my coffee, and we have some sort of dessert, and sit and watch a episode of Dick Van Dyke. And that has been a highlight. And then while I was in Nashville, as I said, my husband and I would get a dessert and then watch some sort of movie or something. We watched a couple of movies. Now, one of them was some Christmas Hallmark, and I can't remember. If I can find it, I'll put it up on the screen. I don't watch a lot of those. I have to kind of be in the mood for them. Sometimes I'm in the mood for those cheesy Hallmark Christmas movies, and they had like the Christmas in July, I think, going on or something. So we watched one of those, and it was actually cute. I liked it. But we watched Gaslight. If you've never seen Gaslight, it was fantastic. I actually pulled up some notes so that I could tell you about it. It says Gaslight is from 1944, and it's a psychological thriller, and it stars Charles Boyer and Ingrid Bergman. It was so good. It's a black and white film. It says on this, where I found the facts about it, it says that it was actually a remake of a 1940 British film of the same name. I've never seen that, but I'm interested in seeing it. It says Gaslight was released on May 4th, 1944 by MGM, and it was a huge success. It was nominated for Academy Awards for the Best Picture, Best Actress for Bergman, and the Best Production Design. So, you know, it was a highly successful film, I take it. But I can see why. I really enjoyed it. If you enjoy suspense and black and white movies, I think you would enjoy this one. It's about a man, a husband, who tries to convince his wife that she is going insane. And it is super suspenseful, and I was drawn in from the very beginning. It starts off, the wife, before she's married, she's a young girl, and she's leaving this home where her aunt has been strangled. And so she moves to another country. That's where she meets her husband, and then they move back to that house. And things go south when they move back to the house where her aunt was murdered. It's highly suspenseful. It's a lot like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, if you like those. It reminds me of the black and white Rebecca version by Alfred Hitchcock. Not that other thing on Netflix. We won't talk about that. But the one from Alfred Hitchcock. It's a lot like that. Some of those suspenseful black and white movies. So if you like that kind of movie, I highly recommend Gaslight, because that was a favorite for me. And then that leads into Jane Austen July, because there is a video I want you to watch. Something favorite that I watched this past week. The last two prompts, I don't think I have it. Yes, I do. The last two prompts on the Jane Austen July readathon were, number 6 was watch a direct screen adaptation of a Jane Austen book, and number 7 was watch a modern screen adaptation or retelling of a Jane Austen book. So I watched Emma, the modern Emma, not modern Emma, the latest Emma that has been made a couple of years ago, I think. I watched it again, and then I watched Clueless because they were free. I saw them for free on one of my streaming services. I don't know which one. So I watched those, and then I watched the Emma with Romola, whoever, I can't remember her name. But anyway, that is a favorite Emma adaptation for me. It's a BBC. I love the BBC adaptations. I think they're fantastic. They stick to the story better. And they're usually mini-series, so they go through the story. They have more details in them. So I just enjoy taking my time going through a mini-series. I think they just work better for Jane Austen. So I love that one. She is just absolutely beautiful in that miniseries. She's a beautiful girl. She just, to me, captures the essence of Emma well. Her innocence when she's smiling, and I don't know, just something about it is I thought, a good interpretation of Emma. But I just wanted to say that you need to watch Janelle at Too Fond of Books. Her husband, he decided to rank the adaptations. What he thought Janelle would say was her ranking for the Jane Austen adaptations. It is hilarious. while I was watching it, I mean, he describes them using Die Hard and Two Old People or something. I couldn't stop laughing because it sounded like my husband trying to describe a Jane Austen adaptation. And so I could definitely relate because my husband watches those movies with me because he loves me. And I don't know if he'd admit it, but he actually enjoys watching them too. But he probably would describe them similar to how Janelle's husband describes them. So I'm going to leave a link. And if you have not watched Too Fond of Books, you need to go over because she has a great channel. But you definitely, if you're a Jane Austen fan and you love the adaptations or period dramas, you definitely need to watch your husband try to rank the Jane Austen adaptations. And then the next day she posted a video of 31 Jane Austen adaptations and she ranked those. So if you're looking for an adaptation, because there were several on there I have never seen before, and she shares her thoughts. So that was a great one too. But you definitely need to watch her husband's ranking because it was so funny. So anyway, that was a highlight for me. That was a favorite for the month. I watched that just a few days ago at the end of July, and it just was a great way to celebrate, and I just loved it. So that was great, and thank you, Janelle, for sharing that because it was so much fun. So that leads me into some Jane Austen. Oh, and what I was saying about Emma. I watched the new Emma. The first time I watched it, I hated it. I'll just be honest. I hated it. I didn't think it was any good. I was like, no, this is not for me. But then when it came up free, I watched it again. So this last week, I watched it one more time. So that would have been my third time. And I actually enjoyed it that time. It took me 3 times. But I do like the colors. It's beautiful. The scenery is beautiful. The colors are beautiful. And I don't know, it's sort of growing on me. Now, I have not even attempted the Netflix Persuasion. I don't know when I'll be brave enough to watch that. I probably will sometime because I need to rank those eventually. But I went back to my favorite, which is the one I mentioned earlier of Emma, and I watched it again and enjoyed that too. And I watched Clueless and I enjoyed it. I was surprised at how much I did enjoy it because I hadn't watched that since it came out years ago. And I wasn't sure how I would feel, but it really is a good modern adaptation of Emma. So if you haven't seen Clueless, I do recommend it. That one. Okay, so let's look at my notes. Okay, so yeah, that was the ones for Jane Austen. So that leads me into the other things for Jane Austen July. I've already mentioned in several updates the things I've been reading for Jane Austen July. I have fulfilled all of the prompts now because I did have just 6 and 7 for those screen adaptations to do. I did enjoy the Wordsworth. That was what I read for the contemporary of Jane Austen. That was for that prompt. I read through these poems of Wordsworth. I enjoyed this. I was surprised at how much I did. I'd never really read Wordsworth. Now, some of the poems were longer and were a little confusing. I would read one poem and think, oh yeah, that's beautiful. And then I would read another poem and I didn't understand what in the world he was talking about. So I do need to revisit these because I just kind of did a read through. I need to go back and read these and kind of ponder on them because some of them I was a little confused with what he was talking about. But most of them I did understand and enjoyed. He writes beautifully. So I do recommend Wordsworth, but I need to go back so that I can understand some of these poems because it was my first time through reading Wordsworth. So I enjoyed that. And then I buddy read the Jane Austen letters. This is a selected letter, so it's just a selection of her letters. I have not finished this. I still have a few left. I should finish this next week, but we were buddy reading this. I was reading this with Cozy Chronicles, Ellie from Cozy Chronicles, and we both had the same kind of feelings, I think, about this. We enjoyed it, but there were some letters that we were confused about because, you know, they're just kind of selected and we weren't sure who these people were. So I did have to rely heavily on the notes at the back, and I'm thankful for those notes. So I will finish this probably next week, but I didn't get quite finished. So then for the rest of July, I had, you know, it was last week, I was finishing up everything. I was trying to get done. And so I had a couple of Regency romance novels that I had picked up for Jane Austen July because that fulfilled the prompt: read a retelling of a Jane Austen or work of historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time. And so I had picked up a couple of just Regency romances, and one of them I picked up that was really cute. It was called Banishment from M.C. Beaton, who is the author of the Agatha Raisin. Now, I haven't read Agatha Raisin. I want to. But this is a Regency romance, and it is from the Daughters of Mannerling series. This is the first one in the series. It's super short. I don't even think it was 200 pages, so it didn't take me long to read it, but it was a cute one. Now, it's not mind-blowing or anything, but if you're looking for a fun Regency romance, it was just a clean Regency romance. It felt almost like a fairy tale or a fable kind of story because it's about this girl who lives at Mannerling, this estate. She's a spoiled rich girl, basically. And then her father makes some bad financial decisions, and so they lose the home. And everything has to do with this home. Everything that they love is based on this home. This is sort of their identity is found in this home. And so it's about material things. Are they worth it? That kind of thing. And of course she meets this man, and there's sort of another guy that she thinks she should marry that will help her save the estate. So that's the kind of story it is. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. Again, it's not, much to it. It was a super quick read, but I had picked it up and I thought it was a fun read for a Regency romance. Now, I do have another Regency romance that is on my nightstand. I have just a few pages left, and I forgot to bring it in here. But I will talk about it later since I haven't finished it yet. And again, I just picked that up because of Jane Austen July. I don't read a lot of romances. Now, I like romance in my historical fiction, but when it's labeled purely romance, I like other things within it. And so I'm enjoying it, but it is a typical Regency romance. And I'll talk about that later. So I really had a great month of reading for the Jane Austen July readathon. And I really tried to make it Jane Austen everything. And so I did pick up, those couple of Regency romances. But by the end of the week, this past week, I didn't want to start any of my other Jane Austen related books because I just didn't have time. So I thought I'll save those for next time. And I picked up a couple of things to fulfill the prompts on the summer book bingo. I wanted something that wouldn't take long because I wanted to kind of get through the weekend and then start fresh for August with my TBR for August. So I picked up a book to fulfill the prompt on the summer book bingo, a library book. And I picked up one that I've heard somebody that I watch, one of the booktubers, mentioned Pie by Sarah Weeks. I picked this up again because it wouldn't take me long. This took me a day to read. And it's a middle grade mystery. And I don't read a lot of middle grade mysteries. I would love to because they're a lot of fun. And I just thought it would be an interesting one to read and a quick read. And it was so much fun. It was really cute. Every chapter has a pie recipe in it that was submitted by someone, because at the back it tells who submitted each pie recipe. And that was fun too, because I found myself wanting to bake a pie after I read this, and I'm going to do that soon because there was a lot of good recipes in here. But it's about a little girl named Alice and her Aunt Polly. And Aunt Polly is the best pie maker around. And she loves baking pies for everyone, so she opens a pie shop. But she doesn't want money for her pies, so she just wants to give them away because she just enjoys making the pies. So what the townspeople decide to do is leave things for her. When she opens the pie shop, she goes out and there are like eggs or fruit or whatever to make the pies. So that's kind of the agreement between them, and she makes all these pies. Well, one day someone enters Aunt Polly's pie in this contest and she wins. And every year after that, she wins the blue ribbon prize. I think it's called the Blueberry Prize or something. I can't remember. But anyway, she wins it. And so the town becomes famous for these award-winning pies. And they start booming because of Aunt Polly's pies. But then Aunt Polly dies. And when she dies, she leaves the recipe, her secret recipe for the pie crust to, what is the cat's name? The cat is named Lardo. Well, after that, some strange things start happening, like somebody breaks into the pie shop and they're trying to basically find the secret recipe is what's going on. So there is a mystery involved in who's breaking in, who's doing these things, who is trying to steal the secret pie recipe. So it was a fun little, you know, cozy mystery, and it's of course middle grade, so it was a quick read, but it was a lot of fun. So if you're looking for a middle grade mystery, I highly recommend Pie by Sarah Weeks. That was a fun one. And then the other was historical fiction. I needed historical fiction, and I have this set of books, and they're set seasonally. They are by Jeanette Oke, and they were written in the early 1980s. And the first one is Once Upon a Summer. And so I read this one for the historical fiction prompt on the Summer Book Bingo. Again, it wasn't that long. It was a fun read, historical fiction. If you like Little House on the Prairie type books, that's what this feels like. This feels a lot like Anna Green Gables' Little House on the Prairie, because the characterization is really good in here, like Anna Green Gables. And the feel of the story is a lot like Little House on the Prairie. So if you like those kinds of books, you would enjoy Once Upon a Summer. It's told from the point of view of the young boy Josh. I think his name's Joshua. And he is being raised by his grandfather and his aunt. His aunt is actually only a few years older than him. And so the grandfather and the uncle decide they are going to find the right person to marry the aunt. Well, Joshua likes things as they are, and he doesn't want the aunt to get married. But it's really funny because the girl, Annie Lou, doesn't know that the uncle and the grandfather are trying to matchmake. And there's a funny scene where they start writing down who they think suitable. Well, pretty much nobody is suitable for Annie Lou. So there's a lot of rejects on the reject side and not many on the prospect side. So it was really funny. I was laughing out loud in several scenes in this. Just the way the grandfather and uncle go about it is funny. And there were some other things that were funny too with the beaux, the prospects when they come, you know, to call on Annie Lou. But this was a good story. I enjoyed it, and I plan on reading the next one in this series. Again, they're all set seasonally, so there's a summer, autumn, winter, and a spring, and so I'll pick up the autumn one next. This was a good one. So I fulfilled 2 prompts on my summer book bingo this weekend, actually, so that was a lot of fun too. So those are the things I've been reading and enjoying this month. My favorite book of July would have to be The Other Bennett Sister. That was a 5-star read. I talked a little bit about that one in a different reading update, but it was wonderful. And if you're a Jane Austen fan, I highly recommend that one. What have you been reading? Let me know in the comments. So thank you so much for liking and subscribing, and especially commenting, because I love our community. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.